Hey, good morning to Russ and the rest of you out there in the West Coast, out in the middle of the Pacific, perhaps even. Good afternoon to those of you here in the East Coast. Perfect day out there. I'm pretty excited. Got up at 4 this morning to prepare for today's DOE FY23 budget overview. Pretty excited about that. I was able to work on it for a few hours, 6:30 a.m. I'm able to hang out with my boys as they wake up. Somebody asked me once recently, how do I have the energy to do this? Partly it's that, right? The balance that life stuff. But also right before we started here, I was listening to Captain Underpants, a friend like you, right? If you don't listen to things and bring things into your life that pump you up, then maybe that's why you don't have as much energy. But I have a lot of energy because I'm not afraid to listen to Captain Underpants soundtrack. We're going to get started here. Just want to turn off my caption. Got it. Today we're going to talk about the Department of Energy budget. If you've been along for the ride or this is your first time, we've talked about 10 different budgets, including the Department of Energy today. And the way I like to talk about budgets is from a perspective of a salesperson, right? A salesperson has a need to understand the agency more, a business developer, a capture person. And we also are looking to create tasks that can help us move forward in the relationships as well as the opportunities we're trying to pursue. This is a different way of looking at the budget compared to a financial analyst who might talk more about the numbers or, create a pie chart about NAICS codes or whatever, right? I'm more interested about how can a budget help me understand an agency and to be able to win more business? How can it help me understand the programs, et cetera? So that's what we're going to dive into. Before I get too much farther, do me a favor in the chat, go ahead and put your company name and core competency, 2 or 3 words, to let me and others know, especially buyers, who you are and what you do. We want to be able to know that. If you haven't been here before, I deliver my training in a fire hose approach, especially when I've got so much great information like the Department of Energy. I'm so excited about today's thing, partly just because it's such good information. And if energy is your department, then they share very transparently a lot of information. So I'm standing up for today's training. I think you should stand up for the next 25 minutes as well. I can see you, by the way, and maybe you should stand up and have fun. Okay, let's get rock and rolling. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to learn a lot. If you have questions, by the way, put them in the chat. I will get to them later and come back. And thank you, by the way, for some of you who sent me a direct message in LinkedIn. By the way, somebody asked me, how do you do that? Connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a direct message in LinkedIn. If you have topics you'd like me to cover, don't make them too specific of a topic, right? That's only valuable to a couple of people. But if you've got a generic topic, especially like how do I get into an agency? How do I do something around sales? I'd love to be able to talk about that. And we're planning out next week and the week after's topics. So send them to me in direct messaging and I will talk to you about that. Okay, let me switch over to my PDF here. So we're going to rock and roll on the budget. This is a budget brief. And so the overall budget's thousands of pages. I like these documents to start with where it's a budget brief about the Department of Energy, and it'll break it down by subordinate sub-agencies, in this case, laboratories, et cetera, right? But before I go into this one, I'm going to end with this one. And I wanted to start with a couple of other documents that are pretty useful. So this one here, it's only 2 pages. It's part of the overall budget documents, documentation. But in here, the reason I like this, and by the way, let me just really quick, I'm sorry, let me stop sharing. I just want to make sure that I'm looking at chat and somebody can let me know that. Are you seeing my screen and you can see that I shared? Could somebody just let me know that? And I'm going to pay attention to that for a second. And by the way, I'll talk about that sheet I was just showing and I'll come back to it. But while I'm waiting for comments, but this sheet I'm showing you, one of the things I like to look for right away is, are they increasing the budget in particular programs or agencies or laboratories, or are they decreasing it? If I see decreases, then maybe I don't want to spend time there. You can see, thanks, Hunter. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Appreciate that. So here, summary by organization. The only thing I was trying to highlight here is that, as you come down, you see what I highlighted, right? 25% increase, that's great. 160% increase for artificial intelligence, the technology office. I'm like, great, they're spending more money. But here, whatever this is, nuclear waste disposal, if that's your business, this is something you want to pay attention to. Maybe you go to another agency that's doing nuclear waste proposal or disposal, or maybe find out why is that budget being decreased? Are you spending it somewhere else? But it's really important to track on this, right? Clean energy is a huge one. This is in millions, right? So 194 million, and it's 970% increase. So I want you to look through documents like this. When you look through them and you can see the negatives, like here are negatives, but some of it's funding. But here, the non-defense environmental cleanup, environmental management, I can see that's a negative percentage. That's really important for you to track on, because why is it that way? And should I be going to a different agency if that's my specialty? And again, I just came down and highlighted a couple of others that I noticed, like here's Office of Internal Affairs, it's 121%. The other thing I do with this, besides just noting it, is I take an action item in my head as I'm reading through these documents to say, well, why is Office of International Affairs getting more money, right? Is it something I can help with? Are they doing something around data or IT that maybe I can help with? Or is their funding increasing for people to be OCONUS somewhere else outside this country? And by learning about it, I can figure it out. But I can see, all right, it's 121%. That's good numbers. All right, so that's looking at this summary of the budgets by organization. This next one, I don't know why I got this sharing here. This next one, I don't need to zoom in for you. It's just a laboratory table, and it's 131 pages. It's a way of looking at the budget by the laboratories. What I liked about this, though, is that here it just lists all the laboratories. I'm a big fan of a checklist when I think about bid, no bid. When you have a department like energy and it's got all these different labs and offices, well, I kind of bid, no bid the office from a business development perspective. Do I want to go into Ames? Yes or no? You have to come up with your criteria before you start circling them or crossing them off. But somehow or another, I use this list and I go down and I start making a plan for me on how to dig deeper. If you've ever seen me talk about cyber, I've done a whole deep dive on the organizational structure of the Department of Defense's cyber organizations. For example, 16th Air Force, which is Air Force's Cyber Command. And I go through there and I list their like 100 plus commands, subordinate commands, et cetera, coming down. And then I just start circling them and crossing them off so that I begin to focus my energy down onto the commands that could fit to what I'm selling. And if you did something similar, if the Department of Energy is your customer, well, which agencies are you going to go after? And sometimes you won't know. So just circle them so you'll go after them, have an intro call, and the intro call might lead you to explore them further or to cross them off. That's all I wanted to show you on this, but it's still part of the budget and it's helping me focus my business development activity. All right, so this next one is, so these next two documents, instead of going into the department level, Department of Energy, and showing you, which I will do at the end, or going into an agency or a big laboratory, here I'm going into program offices. And so let me start showing you how I look at these things, right? Instead of, $50 billion budget, which basically DOE's budget is, I'm looking at an office that has $21 million budget. And the reason I'm doing this is because when we talk about wanting to get into a program office, well, this is one of the ways you could do it, right? Look at the budget, begin to understand what are the offices, and then see what they say. So here I've got this Office of Technology Transitions, right? I didn't pick it for any other reason except for it was first, and I'm going to come down. But as I come down, let me just explain a little bit about what I'm doing. Hold on one second. Get my little driving hand like that. And I'm going to tell you why I'm highlighting these things, what I'm thinking. It might give you ideas of how you can review a document and how you can note things of interest or create action items from it. So the first thing I'm looking at is the mission of the office. The OTT is to expand the commercial and public impact of the research investment of DOE. It's like, okay, I got it. And the reason this is important is because nobody cares what you know until they know that you care. And one of the ways you can show OTT that you care is to know what their mission is. I was talking to a customer on Tuesday who said, oh, we were talking about research and I was telling him my recommendations. And he was saying, oh, I've been in meetings where like the meeting almost begins with the person saying, tell me what you know about us. I believe it's easy for you to know about the agencies or the program offices you're going to meet when you can just look online, right? Especially this kind of information. So down here, I'm looking at internally. So for DOE, OT&T works to improve the successful transition of technology from proof of concept to prototype to demonstration. This is a big deal for any of us who are on the innovative side, emerging technologies. We think we're more entrepreneurial rather than standard business. Well, how do I start tracking what OT&T does? And if they're doing they're trying to help with the successful transition of technology, well, I can take that and go into OTT and find out what relationships they have throughout DOE where people are doing proof of concepts and looking at technology. Where are they doing all that OT&T is doing the oversight for? So I might be able to use OT&T to reach a bunch of innovative arms within the Department of Energy. So that was internally. Externally, OTT supports development of robust ecosystem for the energy entrepreneurs and technology startups, et cetera. That's important for me to just put it in perspective. Their budget targets and prioritizes impacts in the following areas. And this is really important. I don't want to read each one of them, but as I go through, I recommend you read each one, right? So as I read them, I come down, I'm like, access to and searchability of DOE's intellectual property. What they're saying is they're making it available to people. And so I'm looking at that saying, well, how do I find out what your intellectual property is? Maybe I want to look at DOE's intellectual property to see how I might be able to turn it into a commercialized approach. Maybe I want to talk to their laboratory experts. Well, it seems like OT&T might be an entry point for me to meet people, laboratory experts. And this happens within many agencies where they have programs that allow you to get into their subject matter experts to talk with your subject matter experts. As I come down, I always look for things like this, right? This caught my eye. Highlights of the FY23 budget request. Okay, tell me what your highlights are. I want to know what they are so I can see which one's aligned to what I'm doing. One thing I wanted to point out is the way the budget works and the mandates by law is these guys have to look out 5 years, right? So they're looking at future year spending, and that's really handy for me when I come here and I can see that the request is 21 million, but there's growth expected over the next 5 years. That's awesome. I can look at OT&T and say, well, maybe if I get in now, I can be part of that growth. This is at a $21 million program office. Imagine if you go to the next level or the next level and it's $1 billion, right? There's room for it. And when you understand that 5-year plan out, now you're doing business development capture for 5 years out. You're thinking 5 years out. Government contracting is not a transactional place, right? It's long-term consultative selling. So here's another one. OTT priorities in the out years include the following, right? So here they're talking about that 27 million or whatever it was. Well, what are those priorities? And I can read these and understand them. This is very helpful for me to go in and start having conversations with the government program office, OTT in this example, having conversations about, well, what are you thinking about? Most importantly, I want to be telling them things for them to consider. And when I see an opportunity to do this, I'm able to shift left out of GovWin, out of SAM.gov, out of RFPs and RFIs, and into the program office to help them think about their needs before they even get to the sources sought and RFI phase, right? That's called shifting left. If you understand the power of shifting left, helps you get in there before your competitors and helps you shape an opportunity potentially. If you understand that, put shift left in the chat. Let me know you're following along. Okay, I'm going to cruise on down here. Let me use my page down. It's faster. So I got a couple other pages I want to pop through. There you go. So the next thing that I see is this program direction. And what I was looking for and what caught my eye and I want you to pay attention to as you look at energy from your perspective is in here, these different programs they're talking about, right? Here's communicating successes. They want to bring to life for Congress in particular, a subset of success stories that they're reporting to Congress annually. But they're trying to say, here's the life of the impacts, right? Or bring to life the impacts. What they've done, they want to tell that as a story, which is ironic because that's exactly what we should be doing, right? We don't go in and tell them, hey, we do cyber, we do this and that. We tell a story of how we helped the Army or how we helped another agency or another laboratory within the Department of Energy. We talk about features tell, but stories sell. Here, they're using this model themselves or this approach themselves by telling stories. The reason I highlight it, though, is I want to go find out what are those successes. You think so highly of them that you're telling Congress about these successes. And so I want to track that. I come down here and I see the data collection reporting, right? Data for the 17 DOE laboratories. First thing, okay, so there's 17 laboratories. If I didn't know that before, I know that now. Now I think to myself, of those 17, which one do I want to go after? I don't know. Let me create an action item that says, go figure out which ones of those 17 I want to pursue, or maybe which order do I want to pursue all of them, because then you start at Sandia National Labs or something, for example. I don't know what the production facilities are. I want to take an action item for that. So then they come down, here's data collection. This is important to me. I look at that and I'm looking at OTT. They've got funding that supports data collection. If I'm doing data analytic type business, like some of you are, if that's your business, you would go in and start talking to them, having conversations. I noticed in the budget that you're doing more of this. Where are you at? Where are you trying to go? It helps me understand how to prepare my questions by reading these documents. And so you'll see a lot more of this as you come down that I highlighted. Another example. So here they're talking about one example of the effort of this effort. Wait, hold on, back 1 second. Here they're talking about cross-cutting and strategic topics. So they're talking about trying to go across the agency, the Department of Energy, and find wins, basically. And so one example of this effort is to report on the competitiveness of technologies that are produced in support of this executive order for American supply chain. This one sentence tells me a lot. First off, I want to look into more about what they're talking about cross-cutting. The second thing I want to be tracking on is they talk about the department's response to this executive order 14017. I want to go find out what that is, right? I might know it. If I don't know it, I want to go get that executive order. If I want to serve this customer and this customer is focused on being compliant with executive order 14017, then I want to make sure I know what that is. So when I'm talking to them or when I'm writing even proposals, I'm speaking some of that same language. So here they talk about the examples of what they're doing, and these are important. So here they're talking about another example is commercialization pathways and risk analytics in support of Office of Clean Energy demonstrations. The reason I highlighted that is there's an office in there that OTT is supporting that aligns to some of the stuff I'm interested in. Let me write an item down, a task that says, go look up OCED, right? The Clean Energy Demonstration folks. And so there's a lot more that I went down there, but you get the point of what I'm doing. As I go through, I keep looking at this and they're just giving me gold coming down. Let me switch to this next document because I got 13 minutes, something like that. And I got a couple of these. This is cybersecurity. And so this is a little different spin, but this is the cybersecurity, energy security, and emergency response. And so as I look at this, right, one of the main things I'm seeing is just related to the mission. They're looking at the effort necessary for energy cybersecurity, energy sector cybersecurity. What is that, right? If you're a typical cybersecurity company and you're playing in, let's say, the software development world or whatever, where's the fit? Is there a fit for you here? Or is that some sort of unique cyber company? I have conversations with people a lot when they say we do cyber. I'm like, great. What kind of cyber? Offensive cyber, defensive cyber? Well, what is energy sector cybersecurity? And if you're a cyber company and that's your space and Department of Energy is your target agency, then getting in there and having these conversations are important. By the way, on this homepage too, one of the first things I noticed, this Division Z Energy Act 2020. First off, because it's kind of recent, I want to go look at it. Also, what's Division Z, right? I want to support this customer. I'm going to go take 2 seconds to download that document and do a quick skim of it to understand what is this Division Z Energy Act. I don't need to read all the words, but I need to get an understanding of what is Division Z. I don't know that at the moment, so let me go look. I tend not to go as much down to these documents that are really old. Okay, so let me keep coming down. One of the first things you see me highlighting here is just the budget request going from 156 million to 202 million. That's a good increase. That's what I look for when I'm looking for a budget, right? Same thing here, right? This is an Office of Cybersecurity, Energy Security, and Emergency Response. Now I know the name of an office that I want to go further into. I know I want to do cybersecurity. I don't know if this program office will eventually be my customer, certainly my target customer, but this gives me an action item from a business development perspective to go learn more about CSER, or however you pronounce that, right? Here's a language that is important to me to incorporate into my meetings, that I'm talking this way, but it's certainly important for my RFI and RFP responses, is to understand that energy sector plays a critical role across federal, state, and local jurisdictions, and with nearly all other critical infrastructures relying on power and fuel to operate, right? When I see that, I'm understanding what your mission is. The same way I can look at the Army and go, your job is to fight our nation's wars, for example. Well, we need to enable the soldier in the field. Well, here we need to, our job is to support energy, Department of Energy, to be able to make sure that power and fuel can operate, et cetera. So here they talk about the different programs that they work on. Here, to enhance the resilience, this part's really important, right? Is this funding that goes into it, they want to enhance the resilience, which is the ability to withstand, maintain critical function and quick recovery of disruptions. But they want to enhance the resilience and the security of the U.S. energy infrastructure. Where can I fit into that? As you go through, you want to see similar type stuff. Down here, when I look at with the appropriation funds, this office is going to fund developing and delivering game-changing tools and technologies. Well, if you're on the emerging technology side, if you're an 8A Stars 3 company, for example, and it's all IT, and if you, especially if you're on the pool for emerging technologies, is this a good place to go and knock on the door? I think it is, right? Coming down to this next bullet, they're going to support capacity building through activities such as exercises, training, technical assistance, and workforce development, right? So if you're in the workforce development space, which some of the people in this community are, then here's room where they're telling you, we've got budget for this. I would go have a conversation with them. But now you're having a conversation not based on an opportunity, you're having a conversation based on a need or a focused goal that they have set for themselves. Same thing I talked about before, highlights and major changes that are in here. So as you come down, you can look at this. For me, when I was looking at it, I'm seeing things like this increase will also support training of the next generation workforce. This is important to understand. There's a talent shortage within the government. The government is not as good as industry at, first off, finding talent and then retaining them, because the industry pays more than government, basically. And so if you can help them with this, help them with talent recruitment, talent development, well, here's an area where they're talking about it with a specialty in the energy sector, obviously. Risk management tools, 125 million just for risk management tools and technologies, including establishing an energy cyber sense program. That is an action item for me. That's a set of questions I'm going to ask when I go in and talk to this office, CSIR, or however you pronounce that, right? I'm going to go in and talk about, hey, I was reading in the budget where you're establishing an energy cyber sense program. First off, who's heading that up within your program office, within your office? And then what does that mean? Like, where are you guys on that? How can we help? I would begin to explore that if that's the space I'm in, right? For you, if this is the space you're in, this would make sense. But it pops to me right away, and I really liked it. You see me do the same thing as I come down. Last thing I want to do on this page, because I want to pop over to the last deck here or a PDF. I like looking at, and they put this in the budgets, they talk about previous accomplishments. So here's FY21 key accomplishments. And by the way, if you're wondering why they haven't written FY22, it's because these documents are written earlier in 2022, right? So 2022 hadn't even really happened when they were writing these documents. That's why they reference 2021, and then where the budget is 2023. That's why you see a missing year. But anyways, examples of key accomplishments means you can speak to that. If you've ever heard me talk about a call plan, and a call plan should have an icebreaker, how do you start the meeting? You could say something if it was relevant to the person you're meeting with. Hey, I noticed that you guys launched a 100-day electric sector industrial control system cybersecurity initiative, which is a lot, with DHS. That sounds really impressive. You know, how's that working out? Whatever it is, you can reference it. But also, the reason I did it is this is just a 100-day initiative. What are you doing going forward? How are you running this? Are you expanding it? How did it work out for you? I want to understand those. Those are all sales questions that would come from just noticing a key accomplishment was that they launched this 100-day initiative. Hope that makes sense there. By the way, if you're following along, so I can take a drink of water, and you understand the power of research to sales, to helping you with business development and capture, just put research rocks into the chat for me, and let me know you're tracking with what I'm saying and the value of doing the research on the agencies that you want to get into. Okay, I got 4 minutes left, and I just want to highlight this one really quick. Coming down, this is their main budget brief, right? It's still not their whole budget, but it's the budget brief. And when I come in here, I just want to tell you things that pop into my eyes as I'm looking at the table of contents, for example. Funding by organization, it captures my eyes. I actually talked about it earlier where I think it was this document, right, where they're doing a summary, but then they expand into it more perhaps. And then as you go down, there's all these different subordinate agencies or laboratories for the Department of Energy here. But you can see here's the National Nuclear Security Administration. I can go in there. They have a huge budget, obviously, but not all of its contract dollars. But they do have a huge spending within the contract world. And as you come down, you can start finding things just in the table of contents that helps you go, okay, of these 119 pages, let me jump to this section first to start there. So an example is I might jump here to manufacturing and energy supply chain because I'm working with customers who are in the supply chain side, the logistics and supply chain. I want to learn more about that. And then, they've got these direct report areas that also fit in. So let me pop down here. Similar thing as we've done before, but this is at the department level now, not just the program office. I can look in here and go, they got 50 billion in discretionary funds. I take the liberty to roll numbers up, but it's 15% increase, right? 15% over the 2 year previous. And that's a big deal, right? And one thing that I noticed this last sentence, it reflects departmental realignment. What is that realignment? So how do I learn more about it? How do I understand how that might impact me? I take that as an action item to ask that question. When I'm asking that question, I will begin to understand them more. And down in this document, I don't know if I'll get to it today, but down in this document, I highlighted it because I found this realignment and where they were talking about it. Here, it's talking about $11 billion of the 50 in investments in clean energy, research, development, demonstration, and deployment. But clean energy, if that's your space, there's a ton of money there, and you can begin to look at that and understand it. And as they get more specific, they talk about, a new solar manufacturing accelerator. What is that, right? $200 million for a solar manufacturing accelerator. Basically, part of it is saying build in America type thing, right? But if that's your space, if you're in the manufacturing space or the solar space, clean energy, going in there and figuring out whether you might fit in your services, your products, you have this ability to do that. You can see as I'm highlighting a lot more that I just keep doing the same thing. Remember, I talk about those of you who might be in workforce development or training, right? Here's $1 billion to create jobs by building and improving clean infrastructure, right? By newly established offices. And so I want to go learn what those offices are. I also want to learn, how are you spending that money? Are you sending it out as grants to the states? Is there a way for me to get ahead if you play at the state and the federal level? Is there a way for me to get ahead of that dollar and help the states understand what to do with those dollars when they come down? Are you putting out, like I can look at the Department of Energy and I might think to myself from a business development perspective, are they creating some sort of blueprint or playbook for the states? What I have found is most people downrange don't read what other people build. But if you can get your hands on it and then you can interpret it for other customers, whether it's in the Fed or in the States, then they will appreciate you and perhaps you get yourself in the door for that. So as I come down, I keep doing it. But here's one last one I just want to point out, because these are the nuggets you can find in a budget, right? I'm just looking at the budget and I haven't even gone to the thousands of pages. I'm just looking at the summary. But in here, I'm looking at $90 million for a new grid deployment office. I don't know what that is, but I will tell you, as a professional services and IT services, I'll still go find out who that is. If energy is my target department, I will still go knock on that door, because I don't know what grid deployment is, and I'm pretty sure I don't play in that space, but you need all sorts of infrastructure to stand up a new office. How are you managing the data? How are you managing the communication, the collaboration, the project management? There might be a fit for me to help with those spaces if I don't do grid deployment. But if you do grid deployment, obviously it's a good piece of information for you to follow back up. So again, a fire hose worth of information here as we talk about the Department of Energy's budget, right? But the whole idea behind it that I want you to take away is, if you do the research with the budget and you begin to look into the budget, you will find all sorts of information about the agency, of course, about the money they spend. But the part I like best is about this office and these challenges, these objectives. Somebody just asked me today to teach more about pains and objectives, and you can find those in the budget. So Okay, remember, government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is ending on time. So I'm out of here. I will see you next week. Have a great weekend.